Forgotten Omega found a baby crying in snow. It grabbed her, and the Alpha King's mark appeared on her wrist. Hello, everyone. Before we step into today's story, I have one small favor to ask. Please hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a new story from our channel. It only takes a moment, it is completely free, and it helps us continue bringing you powerful, emotional stories filled with courage, love, and destiny. Your support means more to us than you know. And before we begin, tell us in the comments where in the world you are watching from and what time it is where you are right now. We love seeing how far these stories travel and discovering who is sharing this journey with us today. Now, settle in, and let's begin today's story. Don't leave me here. Clara Hayes froze in the middle of the snow-covered trail, though she knew the voice could not have belonged to the wind. Frost Hollow had been silent for miles, buried beneath nearly a foot of fresh snow, with only the groaning pines and the soft crunch of her boots keeping her company. Then she heard it again. A baby's cry. Thin, frightened, real. Clara tightened her worn gray cloak and stared toward the dark trees beyond the trail. Everyone in Silver Pine knew the old warnings about Frostwood. Travelers told stories of strange voices calling from between the pines during winter storms, sounds meant to lure careless wolves away from marked roads. Clara had never believed most of them. Still, she was an Omega, and according to her pack, not even a particularly useful one. No powerful wolf. No impressive scent. No family waiting for her return. She was the woman people forgot to count when winter rations were handed out, the quiet figure who carried medicine to elderly pack members because nobody else wanted the long walk. Tonight, being forgotten suddenly felt dangerous. The cry came again. Clara turned toward it. Hello. Her voice disappeared into the falling snow. No answer. Then a tiny whimper reached her ears. Clara stepped off the trail. Every sensible instinct told her to return to Silver Pine. But another instinct rose beneath it, quieter and stronger. Someone needed her. She pushed through branches heavy with snow until she reached a small clearing beneath an ancient pine. At first she saw only white. Then something moved. Clara's breath caught. A little boy lay curled beneath the tree, wrapped in a black blanket embroidered with torn silver thread. He couldn't have been more than 2 years old. Snow dusted his dark lashes. His cheeks were pale from the cold, and one tiny hand reached weakly from the blanket. Oh, sweetheart. Clara dropped beside him, immediately removing her cloak and wrapping it around his small body. The child opened his eyes. They were an unusual silver gray, clear and strangely calm despite his tears. You're safe, Clara whispered, rubbing warmth into his little hands. I've got you. She didn't know whether that promise was true. She only knew she would make it true somehow. The boy stared at her, as if he recognized something no one else had ever bothered to see. Then his fingers closed around her wrist. Heat flashed beneath Clara's skin. She gasped. Silver light raced from beneath the child's fingertips, curling around her wrist in delicate lines. A crescent moon appeared first, then a crown, then the unmistakable shape of a royal wolf. Clara stared, unable to breathe. Behind her, a lantern struck the snow. Elder Thomas, who had followed her from the trail, stood motionless between the trees. His face had gone completely pale. Clara, he whispered, do you know what that is? She shook her head. His eyes remained fixed on the glowing symbol. That's the Alpha King's mark. Clara looked down at the child clinging peacefully to her. She had never met the Alpha King, but somehow, his mark was burning on her wrist. Clara could not stop staring at the silver mark. Its glow faded slowly, but the warmth remained beneath her skin, pulsing in time with the small heartbeat pressed against her chest. Elder Thomas stepped closer, his expression caught somewhere between wonder and fear. We need to return to Silver Pine, he said quietly. Now. Clara pulled her cloak more securely around the child. He needs warmth first. Thomas glanced toward the darkening forest. And you need answers. Clara almost laughed at that. Answers had never been something Silver Pine offered her. For 24 years, she had lived at the edge of pack life, close enough to serve, but never important enough to belong. When ceremonial seats were assigned, her name somehow disappeared from the list. When winter supplies were counted, someone always forgot her portion until she asked. When the infirmary needed help through the night, everyone remembered Clara Hayes. By morning, they forgot who had stayed. She had learned not to complain. Instead, She carried soup to elderly neighbors, repaired children's coats, and sat beside frightened patients when stronger wolves became impatient with them. Her gift was quiet, almost embarrassing by Silverpine standards. When Clara touched someone in pain, she could sometimes feel their fear as if it were a trembling thread beneath her fingertips. If she stayed calm, the thread softened. Breathing steadied. Panic eased. Wolves called it a servant's gift. Clara had stopped trying to convince them otherwise. But the child in her arms responded differently. As she placed her palm gently against his back, warmth moved through her hand, deeper and brighter than anything she had felt before. The little boy sighed. His shivering eased. Somewhere inside Clara, something answered. Her wolf. For years, that presence had been little more than a distant whisper, so faint that some pack members privately wondered whether Clara had a wolf at all. Now it lifted its head inside her with sudden clarity. Not angry, not hungry, protective. Clara nearly stumbled. What is it? Thomas asked. Nothing. But it was not nothing. Her wolf had awakened for this child. They reached Silverpine shortly after nightfall, where yellow lights glowed behind frosted windows. Word traveled faster than they did. By the time Clara entered the infirmary, 3 elders and several curious pack members were waiting. Their attention went first to the baby, then to Clara's wrist. For once, nobody looked through her. Give me the child, Elder Mason ordered. Clara tightened her hold. Why? The room became still. Clara Hayes did not question elders. Forgotten Omegas certainly did not. Mason frowned. Royal patrols have been searching the northern territories. If this child belongs to the crown, we will surrender him immediately. You do not know who he belongs to, and neither do you. Clara looked down. The boy had awakened again. His strange silver-gray eyes studied the room without crying. No sense surrounded him. Clara suddenly realized what had been bothering her since the forest. Every living wolf carried one. Alpha, Beta, Omega, even newborn pups. This child carried nothing. He was invisible to wolf senses. Then his tiny fingers touched Clara's glowing wrist. His lips parted. One soft word escaped. Moon. Every candle in the infirmary flickered at once. The candles steadied, but no one in the infirmary spoke. Clara felt the child's small hand resting against her wrist, directly over the fading silver mark. Moon. He repeated, softer this time. Elder Mason took one careful step forward. How does he know that word? He is old enough to know words, Clara replied. That is not what I mean. Mason's eyes narrowed. He said it when he touched the royal mark. Clara looked down at the boy. Can you tell me your name? He watched her silently. My name is Clara. She touched her chest, then pointed gently toward him. What is yours? His lips moved, but no sound came. Clara tried again. Eli. The name came to her strangely, almost like a memory that did not belong to her. The boy blinked. Then he placed his hand against his own chest. Eli. Thomas inhaled sharply. Clara barely noticed. Something else had caught her attention. She could feel Eli's heartbeat through the blanket, but beneath its quick rhythm was another sensation, faint and steady, like a second pulse answering from somewhere deeper. Clara closed her eyes and rested 2 fingers lightly against his chest. There it was again, a sleeping presence. A wolf. He is one of us, she whispered. Mason frowned. He has no scent. Neither does snow, but you can still feel the cold. Mason did not appreciate the answer. The Royal Patrol will decide what he is. Not until we know why a child was alone in Frostwood. A murmur moved through the room. Clara heard her own words and almost did not recognize the woman speaking them. All her life, survival had meant staying quiet. Yet Eli had spent only hours in her arms, and silence suddenly felt like cowardice. Mason's expression hardened. You are forgetting your place. Clara met his gaze. No, I think everyone else has been deciding it for me. Before Mason could respond, a bell rang outside. Once, twice, then 3 times. Thomas turned toward the window. Someone crossed the eastern boundary. The infirmary changed instantly. Pack members moved toward the doors while Clara drew Eli closer. Through the frosted glass, several shadowed figures appeared between the buildings. They wore pale winter cloaks and smooth white masks. No royal insignia. No pack colors. They moved without calling for permission to enter. Those are not royal patrols, Thomas said. The mark on Clara's wrist suddenly warmed. Eli whimpered. His calm vanished so quickly that Clara felt his fear before she saw it. A cold thread of panic passed from his little hand into hers. He knew them. Clara did not wait for Mason's permission. She wrapped Eli securely in her cloak and moved toward the rear door. "Where are you going?" Mason demanded. "Somewhere they cannot find him." Thomas stepped into her path, then quietly opened the door for her. "The creek trail," he whispered. "It disappears beneath the snow after half a mile." Clara stared at him. Thomas gave one small nod. "Go." She slipped into the night. Snow swallowed the sound of her footsteps as she entered Frostwood again. Eli held tightly against her heart. Behind her, Silver Pine's bells continued ringing. Ahead lay darkness, cold, and miles of wilderness. Then Eli lifted his head from her shoulder and pointed deeper into the forest. "King," he whispered. 300 miles north of Frostwood, Alpha King Rowan Vale dropped a silver council seal onto the table and stared at his wrist. Heat moved beneath his skin. Not ordinary warmth. Something ancient was waking there. Around him, the Royal Council continued arguing over winter supply routes until Rowan suddenly rose from his chair. Silence followed. "Your Majesty?" Victor Crow asked. Rowan did not answer. A thin, silver line had appeared beneath the skin of his wrist. It curved into a crescent moon, then brightened around the outline of a crown. Rowan had seen that symbol only once before, carved into a sealed chamber beneath the royal archives. The first moon mark, a legend older than the kingdom itself. "Everyone out," Rowan said. Chairs shifted immediately. Council members bowed and departed, but Victor remained beside the long oak table. "What happened?" Rowan pressed his fingers against the mark. The moment he touched it, the chamber vanished from his awareness. Snow, bitter cold, pine trees bending beneath a winter wind. A child crying. Then another heartbeat reached him, fast with exhaustion but steady with determination. A woman's heartbeat. Rowan pulled his hand away. The vision disappeared. "Someone is in Frostwood." Victor's expression changed for only a second. "Frostwood is hundreds of miles away. I know where it is." "Then you also know old magic does not travel hundreds of miles." Rowan looked at him. This did. Victor approached cautiously. "What exactly did you feel?" Rowan hesitated. He had ruled long enough to understand that information was a form of power. Still, one sensation remained so vivid that withholding it felt impossible. Fear. Victor waited. Rowan looked toward the tall windows where snow drifted beyond the glass. "Not mine." He touched the mark again. The connection returned immediately. A woman moving through deep snow. Her breathing strained. A child held close against her chest. She was frightened, but the fear was not for herself. Rowan felt something else beneath it. Gentleness. A quiet determination unlike the dominance that filled his court every day. Then a sharp sting crossed his palm. Rowan looked down. A narrow red line had appeared across his skin, though nothing had touched him. Somewhere far away, the woman had scraped her hand against something in the forest. Victor stared. That cannot be possible. Apparently it is. Rowan reached for the heavy black coat hanging beside the council doors. Victor stepped forward. "You cannot leave the capital because of a bedtime legend." Rowan fastened the coat. "I am not leaving." "Because of a legend." "Then why?" Rowan looked once more at the mark. The woman's heartbeat trembled through the bond. Behind it came the faintest echo of a child's voice. "King." Rowan's entire body went still. No royal heir had spoken that word through a bond in generations. "Prepare the Northern Guard," he ordered. Victor's face tightened. "Your Majesty, think carefully. A king does not chase an unknown Omega through a snowstorm." Rowan opened the doors. Cold air swept through the corridor beyond. "Then explain something to me, Victor." He raised his marked wrist. "Why can I feel her freezing?" Less than 20 minutes later, Rowan rode north beneath a moon hidden by storm clouds. He did not know the woman's name. He did not know why an unknown child was connected to royal magic. But somewhere beyond the mountains, someone the kingdom had never noticed was carrying a secret powerful enough to wake an ancient mark. And Rowan intended to find her. By the time Clara reached the frozen creek, she could barely feel her feet. Snow had climbed past her ankles, and every step demanded more strength than the last. But Eli remained warm beneath her cloak. That was enough. "Stay with me, sweetheart," she whispered. Eli rested his cheek against her shoulder, his small fingers curled around the fabric near her collar. The forest behind them had gone quiet. Too quiet. Clara stopped. Through the trees came the distant rhythm of horses. Her heart tightened. She moved beneath a wide cedar and held Eli closer. The mark on her wrist suddenly grew warm. Not painful. Familiar. As if something far away had finally drawn near. Hoofbeats slowed, then stopped. Several riders appeared between the snow-covered pines, dark coats outlined against the white forest. At their center rode a tall man on a black horse. Clara knew who he was before anyone spoke. Power surrounded him, but it was not the crushing dominance she had expected from stories about Alpha Kings. It felt controlled, deliberate. The riders dismounted. One guard stepped forward. "You are standing before Alpha King Rowan Vale." Clara lowered herself instinctively, but only onto one knee because Eli was still in her arms. The child stirred. Rowan approached. He was taller than Clara expected, with dark hair touched by melting snow and silver-gray eyes that stopped first on Eli, then on her wrist. Clara saw his expression change. Rowan slowly raised his own hand. The same crescent and crown glowed beneath his skin. Clara forgot the cold. "You have it too," she whispered. A guard glanced at her in surprise, perhaps because nobody addressed the king so casually. Rowan seemed not to notice. "What is your name?" "Clara Hayes." "And the child?" "Eli. Your son." "No." Rowan looked toward the boy. "May I see him?" Clara hesitated. Every lesson she had ever learned told her that kings did not ask. They commanded. Yet Rowan waited. She loosened the cloak enough for Eli's face to appear. Rowan stepped closer and lifted one hand. Eli immediately turned away, pressing himself against Clara. "Do not," she said. Several guards stiffened. Clara's pulse jumped, but she did not retreat. "He is afraid. Please give him a moment." Silence settled over the creek. Rowan looked at her, then at Eli. To Clara's astonishment, the Alpha King lowered his hand. Then he crouched in the snow, bringing himself to the child's eye level. "Hello, Eli," he said gently. "I am Rowan." Eli peeked over Clara's shoulder. Rowan did nothing else. No command. No display of authority. He simply waited. Slowly, Eli turned. His silver-gray eyes widened. One tiny hand emerged from the cloak. Rowan offered his palm without moving closer. Eli reached for him. The instant their fingers touched, Clara's wrist blazed with silver light. Rowan's mark answered. A ribbon of pale radiance moved between them, illuminating the snow beneath their feet. Every royal guard fell silent. Eli stared at Rowan, then pointed at Clara. "Safe," he whispered. Rowan's gaze lifted to hers. Before either could speak, the light changed. Beneath Eli's small hand appeared a third symbol, older and more intricate than either royal mark. Rowan's calm expression vanished. "Where did you find him?" "Under a pine in Frostwood." Rowan stared at the symbol. "Clara, that mark has not appeared in 300 years." Rowan did not explain the symbol in the forest. He ordered the royal party toward an old mountain lodge 6 miles north, where stone walls, warm fires, and trusted guards offered shelter from the storm. Clara rode with Eli wrapped securely against her, while Rowan remained close enough that the mark on her wrist never completely cooled. By dawn, Eli was asleep beside the fireplace under 3 wool blankets, one tiny hand curled beneath his cheek. Clara sat nearby, watching his breathing. "You have checked on him 14 times, Rowan said from across the room. Clara looked up. "You counted. Kings count many things. Apparently sleeping children are among them." Something almost like amusement touched his face, then disappeared. A royal historian entered carrying a narrow wooden case. Inside lay a weathered book bound in faded blue leather. "This is one of the oldest surviving records of the First Moon Covenant," the historian said. Rowan opened it carefully. Clara moved closer. The pages described an age before royal marriages became political agreements, when the moon mark was believed to reveal something far more sacred than rank. "The king does not create the first moon mark," Rowan read quietly. "Then who does?" Clara asked. The historian looked toward Eli, an innocent bearer of royal blood. Clara's breath caught. Rowan continued reading. "According to the record, a royal child could awaken the mark when that child encountered a soul the ancient magic recognized as safe, compassionate, and worthy of trust. It was not ownership. It was not a command to marry. It was a judgment of character." Clara stared at her wrist. All night, she had feared the symbol meant her life had suddenly been promised to a stranger. Instead, it meant something she had never expected. She had been seen. "Why did it appear on you?" she asked Rowan. Because the covenant connects the chosen protector to the reigning Alpha King, the historian replied. The marks answer each other. Clara looked at Rowan. So this does not mean I belong to you. Rowan's answer came immediately. No person belongs to me. The simplicity of it surprised her more than any royal declaration could have. Behind them, Eli shifted in his sleep. Clara turned toward him. But if he awakened the mark, then he has royal blood. The historian became very still. Rowan closed the book. I have no children. Could he be from another royal line? Clara asked. Possibly, Rowan said, but his voice had changed. He was thinking of something he had not yet shared. The lodge door opened. Victor Crow entered, snow melting across the shoulders of his dark coat. He had arrived with a second royal group shortly after sunrise. His eyes moved from Rowan to Clara, then settled on Eli. For one brief second, Clara felt something through her unusual gift. Not anger, not confusion, fear. Victor quickly concealed it. Your Majesty, he said, this situation has gone far enough. An unidentified child cannot be allowed to destabilize the crown because of an ancient superstition. Eli awakened at the sound of his voice. His entire body became rigid. Clara crossed the room immediately and lifted him into her arms. The little boy buried his face against her shoulder. He knows you, Clara said. Victor smiled without warmth. That is impossible. Clara placed one hand against Eli's back. His fear passed through her fingertips like cold water. Then she noticed the blanket around him. Beneath a fold of black fabric, several torn silver threads formed part of an emblem. Rowan saw it too. His face went pale. Where did he get that blanket? He was wrapped in it when I found him. Rowan stepped closer, staring at the damaged embroidery. Clara, that symbol belonged to the Lunar Wardens. Victor's composure finally slipped, and Clara understood something before anyone said another word. Victor was not afraid of the ancient mark. He was afraid of the child who had awakened it. Victor recovered quickly. A damaged emblem proves nothing, he said. Old royal symbols have been copied for generations. Clara watched him while Eli clung to her. She had spent years being overlooked, and invisibility had taught her something powerful. People revealed more when they believed no one important was watching. Victor had looked at Eli before he looked at the blanket. He had recognized the danger first. Then you will not object to examining it, Clara said. Victor turned toward her. This is a matter for the crown. The child made it my matter when everyone else left him in the snow. Rowan's gaze moved between them. Clara is right. Victor stiffened. Rowan summoned the historian and ordered the blanket spread across the long table. The silver embroidery appeared meaningless at first, broken lines scattered across black wool. Clara studied it carefully. She remembered repairing ceremonial robes in silver pine, work given to her because it required patience rather than strength. Torn patterns rarely disappeared completely. They left clues. The threads were removed deliberately, she said. How can you know that? Victor asked. Clara pointed to the fabric. Because whoever did it cut only the visible sections. The thread beneath the seams is still there. Rowan came closer. Clara gently turned back the blanket's hem. Hidden silver lines continued beneath the folded edge. Can you restore the pattern? Rowan asked. Not permanently, but maybe long enough to see it. Clara requested a needle and several pins. No one laughed at the forgotten omega now. She worked quietly, drawing the loose sections together without damaging the old cloth. Slowly, the broken embroidery became recognizable. A crescent surrounded by 7 stars. The historian went pale. The Lunar Wardens. Victor stepped back. Even if it is authentic, that organization disappeared years ago. 2 years ago, Rowan corrected. The room chilled despite the fire. Clara looked at him. Rowan's voice lowered. My younger brother, Prince Caleb, and his mate disappeared while traveling through the Northern Territories. Their escort included 3 Lunar Wardens. The official investigation concluded that none survived the winter journey. Clara looked down at Eli. 2 years old. Silver gray eyes. Royal blood. The pieces were beginning to fit, but she refused to force them together without proof. Was Caleb expecting a child? Rowan did not answer immediately. Victor did. This speculation is dangerous. Clara turned toward him. I did not ask you. Silence struck the room. Rowan's eyes remained on Victor. Answer her question. Victor's jaw tightened. The historian spoke instead. There were rumors that Prince Caleb's mate was expecting a baby, but no formal announcement was made. Eli shifted against Clara and stared at Rowan. The resemblance was subtle, but now impossible to ignore. Rowan crouched beside him. "Eli," he said gently, "do you remember your mother?" The child did not answer. Clara felt sadness move through his small body. Then Eli reached inside his blanket and pulled something from a hidden fold Clara had never noticed. A tiny silver pendant rested in his palm. Rowan stopped breathing. Engraved across its surface was the Vale family crest. Victor moved toward the door. "Guard," Rowan said calmly. The doorway was closed before Victor reached it. Rowan did not raise his voice. "No one leaves until we understand the truth." Victor turned. "You would trust an unknown Omega over your own counsel?" Rowan looked at Clara, then at the child she had crossed a frozen forest to protect. "I trust evidence." Clara lowered her eyes to the pendant. On its back were 3 small engraved letters. E.C.V. Eli Caleb Vale. The 3 letters seemed to change the temperature of the room. Eli Caleb Vale. Clara read them again, unwilling to trust hope simply because the pieces fit. Rowan took the pendant carefully, turning it beneath the morning light. His thumb stopped over a tiny crescent engraved beside the family crest. "I gave this to Caleb when he turned 18, he said. For the first time since Clara had met him, the Alpha King sounded less like a ruler than a brother who had just discovered that grief had hidden something from him. Victor shook his head. "A pendant can be stolen." "Yes," Clara said, "which is why we need more than a pendant." Rowan looked at her, and understanding passed quietly between them. Power wanted quick answers. Wisdom demanded proof. The historian searched the Lunar Warden records while Rowan sent a trusted messenger to retrieve sealed documents from the capital. Clara remained with Eli. When she rested her palm against his back, she felt that strange second heartbeat again, the sleeping wolf hidden beneath ancient magic. "His scent was concealed," she whispered. The historian looked up sharply. He found a passage describing an old warden protection known as the Winter Veil, a blessing used only when a royal child's identity had to disappear completely. It could hide scent, bloodline, and wolf presence until the child reached safety. "What ends the blessing?" Rowan asked. The historian read the final line. "Recognition by one who protects without seeking reward." Every eye turned toward Clara. She looked down at Eli. "I did not know who he was." "That may be precisely why it chose you," Rowan said. By afternoon, another discovery arrived. A retired lunar warden named Margaret Hale had been found living in a remote settlement 12 miles from Frostwood. Too frail to travel, she sent a sealed testimony bearing the warden cipher. The historian verified it twice before reading aloud. Prince Caleb and his maid had secretly welcomed a son shortly before their final journey. When danger reached their convoy, the wardens separated the child from the royal party and concealed him under the winter veil. For nearly 2 years, Eli had been moved between hidden sanctuaries while someone inside the royal government searched for him. The final guardian had attempted to bring him towards Silverpine after learning that Rowan had reopened inquiries into Caleb's disappearance. A winter storm had separated them. She placed Eli beneath the old pine near the marked trail, believing travelers would eventually hear him. Clara closed her eyes. She remembered the warnings, the voices in Frostwood, the people who would have kept walking because fear told them not to listen. Who was searching for him? Rowan asked. The historian unfolded the final portion of the testimony. Victor spoke before he could read it. "This has become absurd." Clara looked at him. His fear had returned, stronger now. "You knew Eli was alive." Victor's silence answered before his words could. Rowan did not threaten him. He simply ordered the council records secured and Victor placed under royal supervision until a full hearing could determine the truth. Justice, Clara realized, did not need rage to be powerful. It needed patience, evidence, and someone willing to protect the truth long enough for it to be heard. Rowan crossed to Eli and slowly knelt. "He is my brother's son." Clara nodded. Rowan's eyes shone with an emotion he did not hide. Eli studied him, then reached forward and touched his cheek. "Uncle Rowan," he whispered. Rowan closed his eyes. Clara felt the first moon mark warm around her wrist. Then Eli's hidden scent finally awakened, soft as cedar and winter air. Across his small hand, the ancient third symbol began to glow again. The historian stared at it in disbelief. "That is not the mark of an heir," he whispered. "It is a key." The key did not open a treasure vault. It opened a promise. 3 days later, beneath the royal palace, Rowan stood with Clara and Eli before a stone door that had remained sealed for 3 centuries. The ancient symbol carved into its center matched the light across Eli's hand. When the child touched it, the door opened without a sound. Beyond it waited a circular chamber filled with old records, faded banners, and one sentence carved beneath a silver moon. Strength protects. Love remembers. Clara read the words twice. Somehow, they felt as if they had been waiting for her. The records inside revealed that the First Moon Covenant had never been created to choose queens by rank. It existed to identify protectors whose compassion could balance royal power. Generations had buried that truth beneath politics and tradition. Rowan restored the records to the public archives. Victor faced a formal royal hearing, where documents, testimony, and warden records were presented before the council. Clara attended not as a servant and not as an Omega expected to remain silent, but as the woman whose courage had brought the truth home. The evidence established that Victor had concealed information about Eli and interfered with efforts to locate the missing royal child. He was removed from royal authority while the kingdom completed its judgment through law. Rowan refused to turn justice into revenge. Clara respected him more for that than she would have respected any display of anger. 1 week later, the Great Hall filled with representatives from every northern pack. Clara stood beside Eli beneath hundreds of watching eyes. She expected Rowan to announce what the court had already begun whispering, that the first moon mark had chosen his future Luna. Instead, Rowan descended from the throne and stopped several feet away from her. "Clara Hayes," he said, "what do you want?" The question struck deeper than any royal declaration. Nobody had asked her that before. Not Silverpine, not its elders, not even the people who depended on her kindness. Clara looked around the hall and remembered cold cabins, forgotten rations, elderly wolves left alone, and children whose needs became invisible whenever power had more important concerns. "I want no one forgotten in winter," she said. The hall became still. "I want every pack to maintain a sanctuary for orphaned children, packless Omegas, elderly wolves, and anyone stranded during dangerous weather. No one should have to earn the right to be warm." Rowan studied her for a long moment. Then he turned toward the council. "Write it into law." Months later, people would call it the Winter Sanctuary Law. Clara simply called it remembering. Rowan looked at her again. "There is one more question." The silver mark warmed on her wrist. "The mark may have connected us, but it does not decide for you. I will not claim a future you did not choose." Clara felt something inside her settle. Her wolf, once barely a whisper, stood calm and certain within her. Rowan extended his hand. "Would you stay?" Clara glanced at the throne, then at his hand. "Ask me without the crown." Rowan understood. His shoulders softened. For that moment, he was not the Alpha King. "Clara," he said quietly, "will you stay with me?" She placed her hand in his. "Yes, Rowan." Eli hurried between them and wrapped his small arms around their legs. Laughter moved through the hall, gentle and surprised. The first moon marks glowed together, not as symbols of possession, but of choice. Clara had spent most of her life believing strength meant being impossible to ignore. She finally understood that true strength could be quieter. Sometimes it was listening when everyone else walked away. Sometimes it was asking instead of commanding. Sometimes it was carrying a frightened child through the snow simply because he needed someone. The kingdom had forgotten Clara Hayes. But because Clara refused to forget someone smaller than herself, an ancient promise awakened, a family found its way home, and an entire kingdom learned her name.